that really
Get this
doing all right today.
All right, good deal. Appreciate the feedback there. Let me see, we're still missing over half the class. Like I said, I'll give it a couple more minutes. Let me get this set up here. Check my chat. They're probably getting ready for the debate tonight. Yeah, I'm going to let, is that at 8 o'clock?
It starts at 7, but I think the actual debate's at 8.
Okay, okay. Good deal. Well, I will definitely, and I've had people email me asking if we were going to go all night tonight because they were interested in the debate. And yes, we're not going to go. No, we're not going to go the whole night tonight. I will let you go so that you can watch this final debate. Hopefully it's not a joke like the first debate was. That was absolutely insane. Hopefully it's a little more calm and structured and organized tonight. But I can go ahead and not tell you, honestly, I'm going to go to bed probably after I let you all go. So
hello there, sir. Sorry I'm late.
no, you're fine, Mr. Marcelino. Not a problem. Don't worry. I was actually late getting everything set up, so I apologize for that. I've been going since about 7 o'clock this morning, so busy day doing Eglin business. Okay, let me go ahead and, well, first of all, I want to welcome you all. I see we have about 14 people, so since we have the majority. Ms. Baldwin, I want to extend a personal apology to you. No, I did not forget about the videos, but I have been having some connectivity issues still. Again, I'm going to go to the college tomorrow and I'll get all of that stuff squared away. I'm actually off my regular job tomorrow, so I'm going to go in tomorrow and get all of that squared away for you. I owe you 3 videos in the past 3 weeks, and I'll get those uploaded and linked for you.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Burning the candle at both ends right now. Probably cut the middle of it and burning it at the middle as well. Okay, so again, I want to keep this brief. I'm not going to go on and on tonight because I know many of you want to watch the debate. So I want to make sure that I have enough time to talk about what I need to prepare you for the next essay. And also to give you time to prepare for this very serious debate tonight. I'm sorry, I can't even say it without laughing. All right, so let me switch over to my shared screen real quick. Oh boy, this is the best we can come up with. Let's see here. All right, we're gonna flip this over, and I got the student preview up here so we sanitize the view. So that we don't allow anyone to see the grade books or information that you don't need to see. First of all, I just want to let you all know that Monday, we did have a deadline for midterm grades, and those midterm grades were entered in for all of my classes on time, thank God, even though we had some internet connectivity issues and website issues over the weekend. All right, so, and I also sent out an email to everyone in the class, not only the 101 class, but also the 102 class. The midterm grades are, again, I don't give midterm exams because I don't believe in forcing you to memorize stuff just to perform well on exam, because that's what we call rote memorization, and all you do is cram for that test and you spit it out and data dump afterwards. It really doesn't do any good. So the way that I conduct all of my midterms is I take an average of your performance so far from the beginning of the class through that cutoff date, and average up the score to kind of give you more of an accurate indication and measurement where you are in the class. So having said that, being a fallible human being that I am, or just as, you know, I'm imperfect, just like we all are, there may be either some grades in your grade book that were recorded possibly incorrectly, or I may not have updated all of the grades after you have submitted your assignments. It could be an oversight on my part. If that's the case, what I need you to do is to review your grade book and you can do that by navigating to the top of Blackboard once you log in and clicking the 4th icon, okay? The 4th icon in that little small menu up there. And then you review your grades based on all of the assignments that have been required up until the 19th of October. Okay, so if you've had assignments that were due, which you had one major essay and then some other minor ones, you want to make sure that all of those assignments have grades, the ones you've submitted for, and also that they're recorded accurately. So go back and look at the feedback that I provided you. Each one of those documents has a score on there for the major essays, and then make sure that that score matches up with what I recorded in Blackboard. Again, I'm can make mistakes just like anyone else, so it's really in your best interest to go back and review that just to make sure that I've got it in there correctly. Okay, now after you do that, for those students who this is a group that I call the danger zone at the midway point. If you are somewhere in the realm of a D or an F, that's what I call the danger zone. It's really in your best interest to reach out to me as soon as you can, and give me an explanation for how you've fallen behind and why you've fallen behind. And again, let's talk about a get well plan. I want to see where you're currently at and what your time schedule looks like, and try to figure out how we can help you balance that time management from week to week a little bit better, so that we can get you back on track. I don't want to see anyone at the end of the semester fail, period. I take that very personal, because this is a 101 class, and I don't consider this a very difficult class, because it is introductory in nature. Okay. It is an intense class because you're having a lot of assignments that are due. And I understand that life gets in the way, especially with this COVID environment. We're all having to learn in a new way and using new technology. And that can be intimidating, and in addition to all the things that you're balancing in your life. So I want to extend the opportunity to each and every one of you who are in that danger zone. Please reach out to me. Like Jerry Maguire said in that movie, help me help you. That's what I want to do. But I can't help you unless you reach out to me and let me know that, number one, you want to continue in the course, and two, you want to engage and be successful. I can't help you unless you do that. All right. So if you're in that danger zone, please email me as soon as you can. Let me know what your situation is so that I can come up with ways to help you. And we can get you started on a get well plan in order to, I'm not saying you're going to be able to get full credit for it unless, you have a medical reason for it or extenuating circumstances, but we can at least get you back on track and gaining points to where you don't feel like you're about to drown and just give up on the course. That's the last thing I want. I don't want any of my students giving up on the course. I've had this from semester to semester where some students fall behind and they just quit. They feel like that, well, they've fallen behind to the point where they can't catch back up. That's not true. You can catch back up. All right. We're only at the midway point. There's still plenty of time for you to catch back up. But you can't do that unless you reach out to me. Okay. All right. So get off my soapbox and let's move on and talk about some more important things here. Essay number 3, I'm going to keep reminding you about this from week to week. All right. So we're going to start off each class between now and the 15th of November. And I'm going to remind you, because this is a major essay. This is not like essay number 1 and number 2. This is a major one. This is worth 200 points. And so I want to make sure that you guys keep this at the forefront of your mind and be proactive and stay on track to get this thing completed in a reasonable amount of time, so that you don't come to the beginning of November or the first week in November and you start freaking out thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I blew this off. All right. So at this point, you should have a topic, a good topic in mind. You don't have to have a specific thesis statement yet, but you should have a general thesis statement, something that you want to discuss and research about that topic. Okay. And remember, this is a problem solving type of an essay. Your topic is going to be centered around a problem that has a solvable, that is solvable and has at least one or more solutions to the problem. Okay. So in order to stay on track, I hope you all have a topic. If you do not have a topic, then again, I want you to reach out to me and let me know. Let me know what you're having trouble with. Okay. If you're having a hard time identifying a topic, let's talk about it, and let's look at some of the things that you're interested in and see if we can't identify a topic that has some kind of problem that needs to be solved, one that you can actually do some research with. Okay. So That's your first step, getting that topic identified. For those of you who already have the topic identified, now is a great time to conduct your research. And it shouldn't take you more than a week to comb through the library databases in order to find enough sources out there to conduct your research and get a general knowledge base about your topic and the nature of the problem in relation to your topic. Okay. And again, remember what I said, the more sources that you can bring to your pool, the better. Now, in the requirements document here, I state that a minimum of 4 sources are required for your paper. That doesn't mean you only have to research 4, okay? I would suggest that you would at least double, possibly triple that number for consideration in the research process. In other words, if I'm requiring 4 sources to be documented in your paper, then you really want to have a pool of at least 8 to 12 sources to research and skim through, find important points that you can make in your paper, and preferably solutions in that body of research, okay? Because having a larger pool will allow you, when you're evaluating those sources, to weed out the good sources from the bad sources. And then once you get down to the once you get past that point, once you have a pool of good sources to work with, as long as there's at least 4 there, that makes it so much easier to really deep dive into those sources and examine and evaluate what the solutions are to that problem. Okay. Again, doing that will help you formulate enough ideas and subtopics to write about in your paper. All right. That's the hardest part. Writing the paper is easy as long as you have the knowledge in front of you to write from. And again, the proposal that you're going to be submitting on the 15th of November is a good mix of review of the literature, which is what we call the research, all the sources that you're bringing in to evaluate and present in your paper, combined with your own personal observations and opinions. Okay, make sure that they support one another. Make sure that they complement each other. Okay. Again, for those of you who have started the research process, if you have any questions about the validity and integrity of the source data that you're looking at to investigate your issue or your topic, again, you're welcome to email me those sources, and I'll take a look at them and do what I can to help you stay on the right track when it comes to research. Hold on just a second. My phone is going off. I want to make sure I silence it because I don't want you guys to. All right, here we go. Throw that away. All right. Mr. Ammond in the chat asked, are videos a good source? Absolutely. Absolutely. As long as those videos offer empirical evidence. Okay. What do I mean by empirical evidence? I'm talking about hard data that can be analyzed and evaluated and have some applicability to the problem that you're writing about. Okay. Statistical, logical data. In fact, that's a good segue to what we're going to be talking about tonight when we come to rhetoric. And then also when you watch the debate later, you can use some of these techniques to analyze the candidates and their positions based on rhetoric, because whether you all realize it or not, that's what they're using. They're using rhetoric to appeal to you. Okay. So learning some of these topics and techniques, you're going to be able to use that tonight when you evaluate the candidates in this debate. All right. All right. So again, this paper is due on the 15th of November. Please, please, please do not procrastinate. Please do not think that you're going to move into the final week before the paper's due and be able to complete all the research and writing all in one week. I guarantee you, you're going to freak out. You're going to stress. You're going to have all kinds of anxiety, and you're not going to do a good job. Okay. So you've got plenty of time. Give yourself the time, manage your time wisely to conduct each phase that we've talked about in the research process to prepare for your writing phase. And again, if you're having problems, especially with the research process and identifying sources that are good for your topic, email me and I will help you personally. I'll be your personal tutor. Okay. But again, I can't help you unless you email me and contact me. All right. Anybody have questions about essay number 3 thus far?
Sir, I don't have a question, but I got something to tell you speaking of the essay.
Okay, go ahead.
I decided to let my essay be named The Trouble with Trolls.
The trouble with trolls?
Yes. The reason
Oh, the
why is
internet
because
trolls.
of, yeah, internet trolls. It's because I'm mostly concerned about the internet troll problem. That's why I called my title from my essay, The Trouble with Trolls.
Okay, so you're going to research solutions to prevent cyberbullying and trolling on social media and other websites and stuff?
Cyberbullying and internet trolling, how are those two the same thing, sir?
Because sometimes you can start off trolling someone, and the way in which you're shadowing that person and trolling them, you can turn into cyberbullying pretty quickly.
Well, is there really such thing as an internet troll, sir?
Well, that's one thing you can research and find out. That's a good question. Write that down and do some research about it.
Well, what if an internet troll would be an artificially intelligent troll, but just like one of the trolls based on the fairy tale characters, only they live under the cyberbreads. Wouldn't that be freaky and creepy though?
That would be freaky and creepy. Sure would. But that is definitely something you can research. Yeah, you've got some good questions there. And so I think you've got a good starting point to do some research and see where that research takes you.
Okay. Thank you very much, kind
You're
sir.
very welcome. Anybody else? Let me flip over here because I have to load up something different anyway. So I want to see all your faces. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, there's only one person on camera. No one else has cameras. Feel like I'm talking out into a vacuum of space or something. Ah, Miss Paget, she's joining the show. Awesome. Interesting hairdo there. See, I chopped all my hair off. It's all gone. My wife cuts my hair now in the age of COVID, so my hair is all gone. All right. So nobody else has a question about the essay? Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me, okay? I'm here to help you. All right, let me get the other little thing, and we're going to talk about rhetoric and why is rhetoric important, not only when you're analyzing the positions of the candidates you're evaluating tonight in the presidential debate, but even more importantly, writing this essay for Mr. Davis that's due on the 15th of November. Rhetoric is going to be important. You need to understand what rhetoric is and how it's used, especially when you're advocating a position. And in this case, you're going to persuade the reader, specifically me, why the solution that you're proposing is the optimal solution. Okay? And that requires the use of rhetoric. You have to understand how to persuade someone by using the right techniques and the right word choices in order to persuade that reader to come around into your way of thinking. All right, let me bring up my PowerPoint here. This PowerPoint is not long. Don't freak out. Not long. Got plenty of time, but there are some concepts inside of rhetoric that I want to talk about that I do believe will help you, especially when you're composing this essay. Again, this PowerPoint is also available on Blackboard under the course materials folder titled Rhetoric. Okay, so for those of you who love to take notes, feel free to take some notes tonight, but just realize that at the same time, this PowerPoint is available on Blackboard. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
sir, I can. Thank you.
Mhm. Okie dokie. All right. So again, we are talking about rhetoric. Does anybody want to take a stab at what do we mean by rhetoric? Have you ever heard the term rhetoric or rhetorical situation? Okay. Well, as one of my students asked the other night, is it related in any way to diplomacy? I know you've all heard that term before, diplomacy, being able to
Is
engage.
it about persuasive, something about persuading?
Yeah, exactly. Being able to engage with another party in order to bring about a mutual understanding. Okay. Rhetoric is used in diplomacy, but diplomacy is not always used in rhetoric. So those terms are not synonymous, as one of my students asked the other night in the Crestview class. Rhetoric is a foundation of diplomacy, but rhetoric can be used across a broad spectrum of rhetoric can be used across a broad spectrum, okay, of communication devices. So we're going to deep dive into rhetoric here through these slides. So as I've stated here, and this is my definition, this is a definition that I came up with to fully encompass the full scope of rhetoric. It is a broad, complex topic, and it's one that you can actually take a whole course on in order to learn and understand. But considering this is a 101 class, we're going to kind of dial it back a little bit and discuss it on the basic level. Okay. Rhetoric. What is rhetoric? Well, in as basic of a term as I can come up with, it is basically the art of using written, spoken, and visual language to communicate. Okay. Now, the first two are pretty self-evident, right? You read someone's essay or you read someone's poem. That is a written form of communication that someone is sharing with you. But what do we mean by visual language? What is an example of visual language? Well, in a nutshell, it would be much easier for me to, if we were all in a classroom right now, for you to see this. But if you were in a classroom with me, you would see me walk around a lot. And when I'm lecturing and I'm sharing knowledge with you, and in order to illustrate my points and to bring emphasis to certain things, you would see me do this a lot, right? Visual, non-verbal communication through visual language, through gestures, through hand motions, through head nods, through facial features. All of those things are also a part of rhetoric. Okay. You know, relaying a message to you with a smile on my face will communicate a certain message that is distinct from if I've got a very ugly, mean look, right? You're not going to receive that message the same way as if I were smiling, right? And being pleasant and somewhat passive, you know, accommodating. If I'm coming at you and like very aggressive and I've got this mean look on my face, and instead of using hands like this, I'm using fists all the time to talk to you, the message may be the same between the two, but the way you receive it is going to be different depending on the type of visual language that I'm using in combination with this written and spoken. Okay. Now, you're not going to see that in the written form, but you will see that in the spoken form. Okay. All of these three things we use to communicate, right? So this is an art form, the art of using written, spoken, and visual language in combination with one another to communicate with and impress upon an organized and maintained social group. Okay. Now, we all live here in the United States. We all have a common culture. We all have subcultures that we're all split up into, but overall we have a overarching social contract, right? and a culture defined on that we all engage with one another on, and we communicate with one another. That's what we mean by an organized and maintained social group. In order to not only form that social group and keep it intact, you have to have rhetoric in order to see that group formed, and also to do something positive or possibly negative with that social group. If you're not communicating with one another, if you're not working towards a common goal, then you're really not a social group that's intact, that's communicating with each other at all. Okay. How do you maintain that social group? Well, you need rhetoric to do that. You have to be able to relate to one another, to communicate, to reach an agreement in order to create something that everyone can share, be a part of, and share into. And rhetoric allows you to perform that action. Okay. So that's why I say to impress upon with an organized and maintained social group. It also allows you to construct meanings and identities, not only within that social group, but also individually. The word choices that you make and the way that you deliver those words helps not only you form an identity and be able to understand that self-identity, but it also allows other people within your social group to construct a certain meaning and identity about you and how you're going to engage within that social group. Okay. To coordinate behaviors. In other words, to regulate behaviors, to encourage everyone to agree to only carry out certain behaviors and limit other behaviors in order to overall benefit the overall social group. Okay. You must have rhetoric in order to get everyone to buy into that. To mediate powers, to produce change, to create and share knowledge. All of these sub-components to this definition, none of these things are possible individually, because none of us are islands to ourselves. We're not able to create our own realities and sustain ourselves within these realities solely within ourselves. We have to have other people working with us in order to create a meaningful life and create an economy and create a nation state where everyone's bound together by the rule of law. You have to have rhetoric in order to get everyone together and buy in, or you have nothing but chaos. You have destruction. Okay. So that's what we mean by mediate powers and to produce change. Even when you set up that social group, it's not always going to be ideal and optimal. Change is inevitable. Sometimes you go into a social group and you realize halfway through that, hey, there's certain changes we need to make. We can do things better. We can interact with people in a better way. We can respect one another and work together in a better way. And therefore that produces a reality where change is always constant, and rhetoric facilitates that change. It brings it about, and it gets everyone to buy in. And then also to create and share knowledge. Okay. And you see this quite frequently. You may have some of the smartest people in the world, the most brilliant minds. If they're not able to communicate and relay that information to people from different academic and educational backgrounds, different demographics, if they're not able to communicate across a broad spectrum of society, then that knowledge that is gained by the individual cannot be shared with other people. Okay, because no one is going to be able to understand what that person is saying, or even understand. It may be turned off by the word choices that they're using. So rhetoric is extremely important because it allows you at a certain level to communicate with other people who may be at your level or maybe at a different level of understanding, maybe at a different background or a different economic class, whatnot. It's a broad spectrum. Okay, and understanding how rhetoric works allows you to communicate with vast numbers of people inside your own social group and within other social groups. Okay, so having said that and understanding this definition, we have certain assumptions that we can make based on this definition. One, that language is constitutive. Okay, we shape and are shaped by the language we use. Unfortunately, it happens to be English, which is a crazy language to understand, and not only is it a crazy language to learn at the student level, it's an even more impossible language to teach at the educator level. But it's the one that we're working with here, and we have to recognize that the language is constitutive. We shape the language, and in return are also shaped by the language we're using in order to communicate with other people in our social groups. Language is dialogic. In other words, it exists not only in the words themselves, but also in the space between those words, in the space between you and other people. Okay? And understanding how that space works and how to manipulate it. Well, manipulate may not be the right word, but how to shape it and mold it in order to facilitate the communication that you want to share with other people is extremely important. In other words, you probably always have heard the saying, it's not what you say, but how you say it. That's a part of dialogic. Okay, it's that space that exists in between not only yourself and other people, but also in the space between the words that you're using to communicate. Language is connected to thought, right? Mental activity and inner speech that you have. We all have those quiet moments where we sit back and we reflect, or we sit back and observe. When you're observing things that are going on in the environment around you, or if you're listening to someone speak like you're listening to me now, the mental activity that's going on inside your head, inside your brain, you're processing information, you're processing words and thoughts and emotions and visual, nonverbal language. The whole time you're being shaped by that language, and you're also shaping it as well, because it is connected to the mental processes that's going on within your mind. And language is integrated within social, cultural, and economic practices. Again, and as I told my students the other night, and I asked them the question, I'll ask you too, if you can you name me one profession, one career field where language or communication is not utilized? Can you do that?
A garbage man.
No, that's not necessarily true. You got to communicate on the garbage truck. You have to communicate with your bosses. You have to know what routes you have to run. You have to communicate sometimes with the people that you're picking the trash up at their houses. You have to communicate with your coworkers who are helping you out. Good try. Anyone else?
So any form of communication is
Any form of communication at all, period, language. In other words, all of us, again, none of us are islands to ourselves. None of us are able to give our own selves from the time that we're born to the time that we leave this earth. We cannot give all of the wants and desires specifically to ourselves, period. We don't have the resources to do that. We don't have the faculties to do that. We have to sometimes, and some points in our lives, depend on other people to help us, to assist us, to accomplishing whatever goal that or objective we have for ourselves, either over the day or the month or the year or over 10 years. Communication and language is the way that we facilitate being successful. And you have to work with other people in order to make that happen, right? Even as a baby, you have to communicate. You cried as a baby to let your parents know that you were hungry. It was time to feed me. It's time to change me. You do the same thing as children. You do the same thing as students. You know, you have to come in here and listen to me and learn from me. You have to do the same thing with your other professors. When you move on to your careers, whatever career you decide for yourself, at some point you actually have to, unless you're starting your own business, you have to go interview for a job. Well, if you're starting your own business, you have to have customers in order to keep that business going. So you have to use language to communicate with other people in order to accomplish those goals and objectives. None of us are omniscient. None of us are all powerful. And therefore, we have to use language in order to communicate and exchange, meeting of the minds, share knowledge, to form social groups, to construct meanings within those social groups in order to accomplish some kind of goal or task that we wish, you know, to accomplish. Okay. So now, rhetoric started, the study of rhetoric, of course, began with the ancient Greeks about 2,500 years ago. It was first put into words and studied formally by one of the ancient Greek philosophers, probably the most famous of them all. Anybody want to take a guess who that was? Anybody ever heard of a man named Aristotle?
I
Swear I
have,
was gonna say that. I just was scared.
Don't be scared. Don't ever be scared to answer a question. Ever. And you would have
I
been
am, though.
right. You would have been right.
At least I know I would have been right.
There you go. See, and that gives you a little more confidence to answer the next question. Yeah, absolutely. Aristotle, actually, you can go and buy a book or rent a book on the term, on the study of rhetoric. He has a lengthy book. In fact, I have the book here on rhetoric. He also has one on poetics and one on law. This man was an overachiever. He studied from another philosopher by the name of Plato, who also studied from another philosopher by the name of Socrates. Now, the reason why we consider Aristotle to be so important is because he had a wonderful student who happened to be one of the most brilliant military minds in the history of the world, a military mind that our young men and women who enter into West Point and the Air Force Academy and the Naval Academy, all of them study the life and military conquests of this man even today. Anybody want to take a stab at who that was?
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great. Was that the same person that answered that?
It sure was.
Mm-hmm. See? Gaining that confidence already. Absolutely. Alexander the Great. Now, why is that important? Well, because Alexander the Great, before the age of 30, was able to conquer most of the known world at a very, very early age. I think he did it at somewhere around the age of 28, 29. Very much an overachiever early on in his life. And one of the reasons why he was able to do this, not all of his conquests were military, in a military form or fashion. Some of his conquests were because he was so brilliant at persuading people to join his army or join his empire. Some of the tribes never even fought one battle. They just immediately joined him because he was able to communicate using rhetoric that he learned from Aristotle. And why is that important? Well, that empire impacted a whole region, a whole hemisphere of different cultures. And because of that, the Roman Empire was able to, in an easier way, conquer them and proliferate their empire across Europe, across Africa, across Asia, and reached out even more cultures. So everything that we know today, many of the philosophies that and even legal conceits that we use today in our form of government, all precipitated back to this one man, Aristotle, and was proliferated through Alexander the Great. Okay, so these ancient philosophers studied and analyzed forms of communications and arguments that were essential to public, political, and legal life in Greece. And those of you who don't know, Greece at the time was a direct democracy. Okay, a direct democracy meant every legal citizen who was allowed to vote had an equal say-so in not only forming a government, but the policies that the government will want to promote. Very different than the form of government that we have today. We elect representatives and senators to speak up for us. In ancient Greece, it wasn't that way. They had the direct say-so. And rhetoric was even more important back then than it is today, in order to get all of these bodies of people who were allowed one vote, one person, one man, one vote, to agree on any kind of public policy or even legal policy. It was extremely difficult. And so the study of rhetoric was extremely important in order to continue the Greek culture and Greek form of government. It has since evolved now into a rich and diverse body of research, texts, and pedagogies, branching out even from the days of Aristotle. And today, the rhetorical study and written literacy are understood to be vital to civic, professional, and academic life. And you will see an example of that tonight when you watch the debates. Okay, that is a civic duty that all of us are bound to, or we're supposed to engage in every 4 years, especially when the election of the president comes up. We're bound by a civic duty in order to listen to the platforms and the policies that the candidates are proposing, and they use rhetoric to do that. Some candidates may appeal to you as a constituent on a personal, emotional level. Some candidates may try to appeal to you not on an emotional level, but maybe on a logical level or an ethical level. Okay, those methods, all of those methods come together to encompass what we call the rhetorical study, being able to communicate to someone in a certain way, appealing to a certain portion of their brain in order to bring about change or form a social group, or even bring about a political policy. Okay, all of this goes back to ancient Greece. Even everything that you're going to experience tonight goes back to ancient Greece, right? That's why we want you to study ancient Greece. That's why we want you to study ancient Rome, because the institutions that you have today were formed 2,500, 2,000 years ago. Okay, and they're still implemented and utilized today. All right, I'm not going to go into this lengthy discussion. You actually had this in a previous class, but I have a couple of quotes here. One from Socrates is quoted by Plato. All of Socrates is quotes. All of Socrates' philosophies we have today, in thanks in part to Plato, because he was one that recorded them, wrote them all down. Aristotle, who really formed the study of rhetoric and solidified it and standardized it. He is the one that we consider the father of rhetoric. And of course, we have a lengthy quote here as to why studying rhetoric is important and defining it. Again, I'll let you read that on your own time. In the interest of time tonight, in order to make sure that you're able to prepare for the debate, we'll move right along. I want to get into the actual terminology that we're going to be using in essay writing in the next two major assignments here. We're going to be using some of these concepts. We're going to look at them right now. All right. Aristotle's rhetorical concepts. Again, Aristotle was the first one to sit down and really think this whole study through. He came up with several conceits or concepts of rhetoric and defined them extensively. These are watered down versions. Again, if you take a class on rhetoric, you're going to get the full scope of how each one of these or each concept is utilized in a certain situation in the written, spoken, or nonverbal form. But in the interest of this class and the scope of this class, we're going to keep it at a basic level. Okay. So again, Aristotle identified that there are 5 rhetorical functions that were applicable in ancient Greece that corresponded with all situations, all rhetorical situations. What do I mean by that? Communication from one person to another person or a body of people in order to accomplish a common goal that person was passionate about or was proposing. Okay. All right. Number 1, we have the term logos, which is related to logic. Okay. That's this side of the, well, you can't see because the camera's flipped, but I'm pointing to the left side of my head. For all you left-brainers out there, mathematicians, people of science, this is the side that appeals to you, that of logos, logic. In its original meaning, according to the ancient Greeks, and is translated into English, logos identified or was identified in the context of the speech itself or the written form. Okay. In other words, all of the data, the empirical data, things that you could analyze using the scientific method, the who, what, when, where, and how. So things that you can measure and evaluate using your senses according to reason. To the ancient Greeks, that was what a text consisted of, that of logic, being able to draw a roadmap from point A to point B and give empirical reasons why we should take that route from point A to reach point B. Okay.
Sir, I think you actually mean the who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Not the why.
Not the why?
Not the why.
Why not, sir?
Because why doesn't, you can't define why by using logic. That's philosophy.
Okay, sir. I go what you say. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. But that's a good observation. Okay. The why is important. The why will come later, and you'll see that when we get to another concept. That's why I left out why on purpose. Okay, because why cannot be measured. Why can only be theorized. All right. So, excuse me, my throat's dry. Today, logos takes on somewhat of a different variation. It is still related to logic and reason. And it's not necessarily evident within the text of the speech, but also can be attributed to the person giving the speech or writing the essay. Okay, the thought processes that are identified within the context of the speech that can be related to the author is the thought processes presented in a way that's logical and can be understood using reason. All of those things tied together represents logos, logic and reason. Okay. Now, the thing that's important for you to understand when you're writing your essays, the way that you tap into logos, which is important, right? Especially in this problem solving assignment that you have. You're identifying a problem and presenting solutions. In order to satisfy this rhetorical concept of logos, then that's why it's important for you to do research and bring in data that can be analyzed and observed and evaluated using logic and reason, and present that data in your paper to argue or persuade your point. Okay. Bringing that data into your paper satisfies the conceit of using logos according to the ancient Greeks. Okay. It can be identified in the text very quickly by analyzing the data in which you're including, okay, or the information, the empirical information that you're including in the body of the essay, okay. Now I'm going to skip over to number 3 real quick, because that is the antithesis in many ways to logos, especially now, okay. Pathos, in the original meaning, to appeal to someone in the rhetorical concept of pathos, was to appeal to that person using the text of your written document or your speech to appeal to your audience's sensibilities, okay? In other words, the things that they feel. How does it feel to the person? Today, we consider pathos synonymous with emotion, okay? So we use word choices within the body of the essay or the body of the text. We use certain words to appeal to someone on an emotional level, okay? We can sit there all day and give a bunch of statistics on why something should be implemented. You know, I can create 2 or 3 pages worth of statistics on promoting a certain political policy or legal policy or cultural policy and why it needs to be instituted. But sometimes data in itself doesn't get the message through to your audience. It isn't relatable, because after all, we are human beings. We not only do we use logic and reason to work our way through the world, but we also use emotion. We're emotional based creatures. So being able to identify with your reader and appealing to them using pathos or emotion is just as important sometimes as using logos. Now, I'm going to zoom out here real quick, and I'm going to illustrate this point. How many high school students do I have logged on tonight? Okay. Now, high school students, I'm not picking on you. Miss Pygott, I know you're one too, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. I want to include you in this too, because now you've got confidence to answer the question.
I'm scared now. Don't put me on the spot.
High school students, how many times have you asked your parents if your curfew, I'm just using an example here, yours may be different. Let's say you have a curfew of 12 o'clock. You have somewhere that you want to go with your friends, and you know you're going to need to stay out later than 12 o'clock. How many of you have asked to have your curfew extended because you want to participate in some kind of activity or go with a certain group of friends, and your parents have come back and said, no, not going to happen. Your curfew is at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. You're not going to get an extension, period. How many people has that happened to? 1, 2, Miss Pygott, come on. I'm going to pick on you, Miss Pygott. 3. Has that happened to you? Okay. Did you argue your point? And if you did argue your point, how did you argue your point? Did you use emotion or did you use logic? All right, Miss Pygott, you're the only one with a microphone, so come on camera and on your microphone. I'm sorry to pick on you, but there you go. All right, turn your microphone on.
I didn't argue with my mom.
You argue with your mom about?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did you get mad though?
Yeah, and she'd know I get mad, and she'd be like, go throw a fit somewhere else.
Okay. So here's a case of you're trying to argue a point and persuade a point with your mom, and pathos is just not working out, right? Because you went totally that direction. I'm going to get mad. I'm going to throw a tantrum. I'm going to jump up and down and scream until I get what I want. We all have done that. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work. Now, what about logic and reason? Have you ever tried to use logic and reason to get what you want?
The way that I would use it is I'd be like, Mom, I'm never gonna have this opportunity again. Like, I'm only young one. And she would just say she don't care.
There's still pathos involved in that. Okay, so what I'm getting at here is, in order to, and you can go back off camera. I know it's more comfortable to be off
Okay,
camera. Thank you,
very
Ms. Paul.
well.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
In order
think
to argue a point, yes, sir.
I think I've learned something today. Ethics comes from the Greek word known as ethos.
Yeah. Correct.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're talking about logic and or logos and pathos. Whenever you enter that rhetorical situation and you're trying to persuade someone to come around your way of thinking, and I'm using the high school student as an example here, 9 times out of 10, you use pathos because you're so emotionally wrapped up in trying to persuade your audience at the time, your parents, to come around your way of thinking, that sometimes the pathos can go overboard, right? And then the communication model breaks down because you're too much into pathos. Or if you happen to be logic and reason and argue everything on an empirical basis, sometimes that can lose the audience as well because you're too far into the weeds and it's way over someone's head, or they just totally shut down and don't want to listen to you. That can happen as well, okay? So as Aristotle says, finding a delicate balance, being able to use the right word choices in the right rhetorical situation. And there are many different rhetorical situations within the text of your essay, can provide a delicate balance in order to keep the audience engaged or the reader engaged. The longer you do that, the more likely you are to, oh, hold on, my video is breaking up. Okay, looks like I'm back now. So I can't even remember where I was at now. Oh yeah, talking about logic and reason. Being able to balance those rhetorical situations within the document of your text more likely will keep the reader or the audience engaged. And the longer you're able to do that, the more likely you are to bring that person around to your way of thinking. That's according to Aristotle. So that's why we study rhetoric in all of the rhetorical situations, to have that delicate balance. Now, as Mr. Marcelino just pointed out a while ago, we also have a third one that is extremely important to consider when you're writing your essay. So you have to have empirical data, right? You have to have some facts to back up the points that you're making, and that's the logos. You have to be able to communicate those facts and those theories based on facts in a relatable way to your reader or your audience so that you can keep them engaged. You do that on an emotional level. That is called pathos. But the third one is the one that's most, in my opinion, most critical and the hardest one to keep intact and maintain. And that's where what we call ethos, okay? Or athos, however you want to pronounce it, athos or ethos, okay? That centers around the Greek aspect or concept of what we call ethics, okay? Now, in the original Greek, it wasn't necessarily attributed to the work itself, or not necessarily to the to the work itself, but it was the parts of the speech that reflected upon the speaker or the writer and the character that was present within the text, okay? And that's the hard thing to distinguish between today. Today it's translated as identifying with the speaker entirely. the speaker's trustworthiness and credibility. So we've shifted it from parts of the speech that reflect upon the speaker now solely onto the speaker itself. How trustworthy is this person? How credible is this person who is relating this information to me? Okay, so if you're a person is known to lie a lot or to manipulate a lot, you're going to bring less credibility and trustworthiness to the table than someone who is held in higher esteem based on those virtues. Okay, now at the same time, that's why we harp on, and what I mean by that is us professors, we harp on the fact that we want you to bring outside sources into your paper to back up your thoughts and opinions. We want to bring credibility and trustworthiness in combination, not only with your own thought, not only in itself, but also in combination with your own thoughts and opinions. That increases the trustworthiness and credibility of not only you, but also the thoughts and opinions that you're sharing and that are reflected within the work that you're sharing with an audience or a reader. Okay. We call that today the author's perspective. Okay. So all three of these things right here, Aristotle considered to be extremely important when trying to argue points or persuade people to your way of thinking using rhetoric. You focus on logic, okay, and that's the actual data within the text of your essay. The pathos, the word choices that you're using to relate to your reader and keep that reader engaged. And then the ethos, the integrity that you bring to the work that you're discussing, the text that you're sharing with a reader or with an audience, and the credibility of not only the points that you're making, but the credibility of the outside sources that you're bringing to support your thoughts and opinions. All three of those things together, if you can find a delicate balance between logos and ethos and pathos, and I know it's hard. Some of us spend an entire lifetime trying to find the perfect balance between the three. But if you're able to at least come into a comfortable range between those three, the effectiveness of your communication with other people is increased exponentially. Okay. So focus on logic, ethics, and emotion within the body of your essay when you're working on essay number 3. Be able to relate to me as a reader. Okay, you as a writer, be able to use the word choices appropriately to relate to me as the reader. Present to me logic and reason present within your work to give me some data to understand the context of what you're talking about. And use trustworthiness and credible sources to back up the thoughts and opinions that you're proposing within the paper. Okay. Now, I'm going to pause here for your questions because I've thrown a lot at you. A lot. Does anybody have any questions about logos and ethos and pathos? Okay. Good deal. Again, having a basic understanding is absolutely fine at this point. And you're not fully going to understand the rhetorical situations until you actually utilize them practicing in your writing. Okay. But from this point on, if you keep these rhetorical concepts in mind and be aware of them and how they're utilized in effectively communicating with a speaker, with a reader, or with an audience, it's going to make you even more effective. Okay. So we do have a couple of other concepts in here. We don't have time to really go over them, and they're not really utilized today. They're not really focused on today, but I threw them in there for a little more context. And if you want to learn a little more about Aristotle and his full rhetorical concepts, you can do a deeper dive in there. And there's a couple of more in here that you can look at yourself. And in a nutshell, this table offers some context to how each one of these rhetorical situations are used. Again, logos, relating to the text, the data that's present within the text. Ethos being relatable to the author that's presenting the text and presenting the information and data within the essay. Not only your own observations, but also the review of literature that you're bringing in to back up your own observations. Then we have pathos, being able to relate to your audience in a way to keep that audience engaged and listening to you or continue to read your essay. That's extremely important. And then, of course, we have telos and keros. Telos really focuses on the actual purpose for writing the document, and then keros being more applicable to the setting in which you're writing it. In this case, you're writing it in an academic environment. Okay. All right. So I do have some examples of rhetorical situations here. You can deep dive into these on your own. Again, we're running out of time tonight, but definitely take a look at them. We might look at a few of them next week after all this debate stuff is over with. Might look at a few of these next week, especially Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, "I Have a Dream." There's a lot of rhetoric that's tied up in that speech, and being able to use certain word choices in order to relate and identify with the audience. He was a master at that. So I think we'll definitely look at that next week when we come back to further illustrate how word choices matter when you're talking to, in this particular case, when you're speaking to a group of people, or in your case, writing to a specific person. All right. Okay. So at this point, I am finished with rhetoric. Again, we'll look at another example of rhetoric next week when we look at Dr. King's speech. We'll point out some of the logos and the pathos and the ethos that are present within that speech, and kind of give you a practical exercise to really understand how those concepts are utilized in not only drafting the speech, but also in writing a particular essay. Do I have any questions tonight about the rhetorical concepts that I've discussed tonight? Now, this is what I'd like for you all to do. Having learned the rhetorical concepts of logos and ethos and pathos, for those of you, I hope each and every one of you watched the debate tonight. I want you to, thinking about those concepts, now that you've learned a little bit about them, analyze the positions and the platform and the debate tonight from both candidates. And when we come back next week, we'll have a little poll, and I'll take a poll from the student from the class here, and I will have both candidates up on in a question for each candidate up there, and I'll ask you what rhetorical situation or what rhetorical concept did each one of the candidates utilize in communicating with the constituents during the debate. That'll be an interesting poll next week to see what everybody thinks about that. So definitely watch the debate tonight. I know sometimes these things can be aggravating, dry, boring, but really it is a civic duty, and it's an important one this year. So definitely check it out and watch it. And while you do so, just kind of analyze the positions of both candidates, looking for logos, pathos, and ethos. Which one of those, or a combination of those, stood out in your mind most when you listen to one candidate versus the other? And we'll kind of play with that next week. All right. So if nobody else has any questions, again, remember, be preparing for essay number 3. Okay. I'm appealing to you using pathos and a little bit of logos too, because there's some logic and reasoning behind this. Do not procrastinate. Stay on track preparing for essay number 3. Okay. This is not an assignment that you want to procrastinate on, because it's 200 points. That's 2 letter grades. Okay. Do yourself a favor, prepare yourself to write this essay and do the best job you can. You owe it to yourself. You've already made it past the halfway point. No reason to slack off and procrastinate now and to trail off. Stay engaged, stay proactive, and push forward. Okay. And if you have any problems between now and next week, remember to email me and I'll do everything I can to help you. Okay. All right. If nobody else has anything, I'll adjourn for the night. I bid you adieu and enjoy the debate. I'm gonna call it by what it is. It's a debate. Enjoy it, and remember to analyze it. We'll take that poll next week. All right, we'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend and a blessed week. And I'll see you all next Thursday night.
Bye, sir. See you. Have a good weekend, sir.
You too. Thank you,
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Ms. Baldwin. I'll have your videos tomorrow. I promise. I promise.
Yeah, I understand.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.